Hello, and welcome now to lecture 5. And let's have a first go at modelling. Let's see if we can model something together, something very basic. Let's see if we can do a sort of a cabin, a sort of pioneer cabin. Let's see what we can do with that. So first of all, just click anywhere to remove the splash screen. And we have the camera and we have the light. And let's go ahead and delete those. So we just grab a selection box around the item by holding down the left mouse button, pull over selection, and then just press X or delete. There we go. So now we just have the cube. So you've got hopefully this view up here, and if you haven't, press N on the keyboard to get it. There we go. And then go ahead here and click on item. So we want to look at this cube. Now let's actually set the proportions of this house. So I'm going to make it in the y-axis. I'm going to make it 10 meters. I'm going to press enter, and there it is, 10 meters. And then in the x-axis, the red line, I'm going to make it half its y-axis. So I'm going to make it 5 and enter. And I'm going to make it in height 3 meters and click enter. So right now the house isn't at ground level, it's half and half. So let's press 1 on the numpad of your keyboard. Come over here to the tab and go to move selection, there we go. And now just pull it up on the z-axis until it's level with the top like that. There we go. And there we go. We have as our basic size for our log cabin. Okay, let's have a look here. So it is in the x-axis, which is the red line, it's 5 meters wide. In the y-axis, the green line, it's 10 meters wide. And in the height, in the z-axis, it's 3 meters. I'm happy with that. But the scale is out now. So the scale should still read 1, 1, and 1. Since we haven't scaled the item, we've just changed the dimensions. So let's fix that. So if you hold down Control and press A, you'll get this apply box up. And come on down to rotation and scale and click on that. Before I do, I want to explain. So the rotation actually, when we look at it, is 0, 0, 0. So the rotation is correct. But I always, just as a standard thing to do, always click on rotation and scale. In case there is an issue with the scale in the future of different items we work with, it's instantly corrected too. So rotation and scale, there we go. Alright, what to do now? Let's go ahead next and put some height to this. So the first thing I'll do is I'll tap into edit mode. So I'll hit tab on the keyboard. And right now you can see we've got vertices selected. So I want edge selection. So I can come up here and I can click on this like this. But I'm going to start using the keyboard for my shortcuts. So I'm simply going to press 2 on the keyboard. And now we have edge selection. If I press 1, we get vertices selection, 2 for edge selection, and 3 for face selection. You can see it changing up there as I press 1, 2, and 3. I want 2, so I'll go there. I'm going to select this edge here. I'm going to hold shift so I can select more than one edge and select this one. I'm now going to right click and I'm going to press on subdivide. And that's simply divided that face into 2 halves. It's divided these edges into 2, so it's divided the face into 2. I can now select that edge there in the middle, come over here, make sure we're in move, and just pull that up. And I can actually press 1 on the keyboard to see it from the exact orthographic view of the side and carry on pulling that up in the z-axis. I kind of want my ridge of my roof to be offset, so I'm going to pull it over in the x-axis now to get a kind of an offset ridge. There we go. And that's our very basic log cabin shape. The next thing I want to do is actually grab a copy of this. So I'm actually going to just grab this face here. So I'll press 3 on the keyboard, grab this face, hold down Shift and grab this one. And now I'm going to make a copy of this. So to do that, I'm going to press Shift D, and now I'm going to press Z, and I'm going to pull that copy up in the Z axis. And there it is, moving straight up in the Z axis. Now I want to take that and separate it from the model of the walls. So while that's still selected, I'm going to press P, and I'm going to separate by selection because we have these items selected. So I'm going to press separate by selection. There we go. I'm now going to hit the tab button to tap out of edit mode back into object mode. And now we have 2 cubes. We have this one, and you can see it here in the outliner. This one and this one. So let's go ahead and name that. So here, I'm going to call this the wall. So I'm going to come up here to this cube because that's the one that's selected here. So it's selected there. And double click on it. And I'm going to call it the walls. There we go. Whoopsie. Walls. That's got it. And now I'm going to click this one here. And I'm going to double click on it. Delete that and call it the roof. There we go. So now the outliner is ordered for us. We have the walls and the roof. There we go. Let's have a look at the roof. And the scale's all correct and the rotation's correct, so we're happy there. So let's go ahead and give it some overhangs. So the first thing I'm going to do is scale it in the y-axis. I'm going to press S. Now if I scale just by doing that, it scales the whole roof, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to press Escape to stop that command. I'm going to press S again, and this time I'm just going to press Y, so it just scales in the y-axis to give it overhangs on the side. That's cool. That's what we want. Now I want to make it overhang on the front and the back. A lot more on the front because I want to create like a stoop on this house. So let's tap into edit mode with that. So I'll select it. I'll hit the tab button. I'll press 2 so we can go into edge selection. And I'll grab this edge here. Now, the gizmo is not lined up with the surface. So if I go ahead and pull that on the x-axis, it's changing the angle of the roof. So it's not going to match up with the walls. We don't want that. So I'm just going to press Escape to cancel that command. And I'm going to come up here now to this one, Transformation Orientation. I'm going to hit the drop down and I'm going to click on Normals. And now the gizmo lines up with the surfaces of this roof. With that done, I'm going to pull that out to create our stoop on the front of our property. I'm going to do the same with this one now. Pull that out to create a little overhang on the back. And here in transformation, I'm going to go back with global so that now the gizmo lines up again with the X, Y, and Z axes. Okay, let's actually now change the angle of the stoop where it meets the roof point. So how do we do that? If we do it now, it's going to change that whole roof pitch, and we don't want that. So I'm going to press Escape. I'm going to select this edge here. I'm going to hold Shift and select this one. I'm going to right click and I'm going to subdivide. I'm going to go ahead to the transformation again and go to Normals and go ahead and pull that down. Whoops. Just grab this one on its own and pull that down until it's level with the wall. Maybe change the angle to see where that is, and that's good. So I'll grab this one here now, and I'm going to go back here to transformation to global, and just go ahead and pull that up to change the angle of the roof just there. Okay, that's good. That's what we want. Let's tap out of edit mode, and the scale's slightly out. So let's press Control A and apply the rotation and scale. And now we're going to add our first modifier to this roof, or to this first thing. So let's go over here to the spanner, add modifier, generate, and we'll come down here to solidify and click on that. And that's added a small amount of thickness to our roof. I'm actually just going to hover over this until we get this horizontal arrow and just drag this in the negative until we get a bit of roof thickness. So I've got 0.13, and I'll make sure that even thickness is applied. There we go. And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead up here, hit this drop down and apply. There we go. I'm going to press 3 on the numpad now to get us an orthographic view. Actually, I'm going to press 1 to see this from the opposite side. There we go. I'm going to grab my roof and I'm going to pull it down until it's making contact with the walls. And there we go. That's looking good. So now let's go ahead and put some doors and windows in this. So to do that, really, we need to create some extra mesh. So that's our next step. Let's tap into edit mode with the walls. Let's select this edge here. Hold down shift and grab this edge. And now let's create an extra edge there. So we can either subdivide, but in this case we're not going to. We're going to press Control R, and that gives us a nice edge between them. And now we'll go ahead and take that up like this. Let's actually view this in the orthographic view. So I'll press 1, I'll press 3, and now let's grab this edge again now. Hold shift and grab this one. And now let's press Control R. And I'm going to scroll the mouse wheel once to get an extra line in there like that. And there we go. Let's have a look at that. Let's grab this line here and take this one down quite some ways like this. Something like that. Let's grab this line and take this down. And there we go. Maybe let's take this one up a little bit. Something like that. Let's grab the bottom edge here of our house. And now let's press Control R again. Take the cursor closer. There we go. And now just bring that over until it's on the corner here like this. Let's do that again. So I'll press Control R and drag that over until we've got about a door's width. Something like that. And now let's do it a little quicker. So let's press Control R. Bring the cursor closer so you see the loop. Before you left click, scroll the mouse wheel once to get 2 loops. And now left click. And just position those something like that. There we go. That's good. So now let's go ahead and create our stoop on our property. Let's press 3 on the keyboard so we can select faces. It's changed to faces just there. Now I could actually just hold shift and move along selecting these. But it's not too bad here. We've only got a few faces. But let's do this. Let me show you an easy way of doing this for future. So I'll select that first edge. Now I'll hold down Control, go along to the last edge that I want to select, grab that, and it'll select obviously the first edge and the last edge, but all the other edges in between. Now I want to pull that out. But I can't just pull it out. If I do that, it's going to do weird things because that face is still connected to the other faces. I'm going to press Escape so it pops back to where it is. I need to extrude it in that x-axis. So I'll press E. And now just bring that out to create the stoop to our property. That's good. That's what we want. Okay, now let's look at our door. So I'm going to grab this edge just here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to dissolve that edge, which means we're going to delete it, but we're not going to delete the structure around it. If I just go ahead and delete that, we have a hole there. That's not what we want. We don't want a hole. I wanted to keep that. So I'm going to press Control Z to go back one move. You didn't need to do that, by the way. So I'm going to grab that edge again, going to right click, and I'm going to dissolve that edge so that we keep that face in there. I'm now going to press 3 so we can select faces. Grab that face. I'm going to press E and just take that back a little bit like this. There we go. Now I need to have a door frame. So to do that, I'm going to press I to inset that face. And just move my mouse a little bit so I get something like that. And now I'm going to press E and take that back. There we go. And now I'm going to press I again to inset a second time. Take that in just a tiny bit like that. And now I'm going to extrude it again, but this time back out. And there we go. Now we've got a bit of a door detail going on. Okay, now let's work on the window. So let's grab this face like this, and let's press E and just take that back like this. And now let's press I and inset this. And now let's press E and just take that back. And there we go. There's our window in place. Okay, I think we just need some posts now on the front edge, and I think we're done. So let's now actually just press Shift A, and let's introduce a mesh, and let's introduce a cube. There's our cube. It's way too big, but let's bring it forward on the x-axis. And now let's hit S and scale this down. Bring it up on the z-axis. And now let's press 3 on the numpad to get the orthographic view. I'm sorry, let's press 1. And let's bring that out like this. I'm going to hold down Shift, press the mouse button, the scroll button, and sort of move ourselves over. And maybe bring it forward. I think I'm happy with the scale, so there we go. Okay, the next thing I want to do is actually just take that top face up. So I'm going to hit the Tab key so we can edit. I'm going to select that top face and just go ahead and pull that up until it's in our roof. There we go, that's that. And that looks good. Okay, the only thing we want to do different maybe is just bevel these edges. But I want to just check that the scale's correct, so I'm going to tap out of edit mode. And the scale's out in this case. So I'm going to press Control A and apply rotation and scale. And now the scales are correct. I'm going to grab this item, hit the Tab key. I'm going to press 2 on the keyboard. And now select these edges. So I'll hold Shift and select 1, 2, 3, and of course number 4. And I'll zoom in a little. And now with those selected, I'm going to bevel those edges. So I could come over here and actually click on bevel. But I'm going to use a shortcut. I'm going to press Control B. And that little line's popped up there to say that we're going to bevel. And I'm just going to gently just move the mouse now until we get something like that. Now it's more chamfered than beveled, so that's not really what I want. So to get more of a bevel look, I'm going to move the mouse wheel a couple of times. There we go. And that's just added some extra edges to those bevels just to add a bit more detail. Not going to do too many because we're adding more complexity to the mesh, but that looks good just like that. If you just left click once, this little box comes up here. I'll click on this, and now here's the properties of that bevel. So at this stage now, if I wanted to, I could increase these segments, and you can see there in the model, you can see the complexity increasing in that bevel. And I'm actually just going to put that back on 3. And if I wanted to, I could change the width of the bevel, really make that a round post, or I can take that back a bit. Oops. Get there in a minute. There we go, that's fine. And there we go, that's that bevel done. I'll tap out of edit mode by hitting the Tab key, and I'll look at that. And I can improve that a little bit further by clicking on it and then right click and shade auto smooth. And there we go. Okay, let's press 1. I'm sorry. Let's press 3 on the numpad. Grab this and take this over now to the edge like this. And now let's press Shift D. And now let's move our copy on the Y-axis. So I'll hit Y, which now we can see the extra line pop up in the Y. And I'll bring that over and I'll just guesstimate it. I'll use the grid pattern that we can see to estimate what I'm doing. There we go. So I've got middle of this cube here. And now I'll press Shift D and Y and bring another copy over to, let's say, the middle of this one. And I'll press Shift D and Y and bring another one over to the middle of this one. And Shift D and Y and bring another one over. And actually, I think I'm going to just distribute these by eye. So I'll pull this over like this, grab this one and pull this over, and this one, until we get something looking about right. And there we go. I'm happy with those. So we could now, if we wanted to, maybe just put a horizontal rail in there. That's one last little thing to do. So let's grab this one here. And let's press Shift D. And we'll press Y. And we'll pull that one out into the middle. Now look, let's look where the gizmo is. And the gizmo is right on the bottom edge of this. So if I rotate it, it will work for me, but it won't be the best. So what I can actually do is right click and I can set the origin to the geometry. And now the gizmo is recentered to the middle of that object. And we can see where the x-axis is, and that's how I want to rotate. So now let's rotate it. So I'll hit R and I'll press X because I want it to rotate in the x-axis. And I'm just going to type 9 and 0 and hit enter. And it's a little long, so let's just scale it down in just the y-axis, the green. So I'll press S and Y and just bring that down. And there we go. So let's press 3 so we can see that nicely. Let's grab this and press Shift D and Y and bring a copy over like this. And press Shift D and Y and bring a copy over here like this. Let's increase the scale on this one, so we'll press S and Y and just increase the scale. And there we go. There's our log cabin, and that's looking absolutely fine. Okay, so now we know how to model. Basically, we're nearly ready to start doing our main project properly. So in our next lecture, we're just going to do some few more little tweaks to Blender, just setting it up exactly how we want it, and then we're going to start modeling. Okay, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye-bye for now.